All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Carter's Corner. I'm just checking the levels. And Dwayne, we good? Fantastic. Okay, so we got the Honourable Charles Smith, who was about to drop some truth bombs.
What were we talking about?
Oh, we'll get to that in a moment. We got Bass is back in because Tyler, we did go over the time frame that Tyler had to be here, so he's doing a few things. We might get him back depending on time allowances, and we've still got Michael Darby on the yellow mic across the road from us. Now, before we get into it, I've just been told we've got 69 comments on the live stream.
That's a world record. You know why, don't you?
For mine, for me, for all of my comments and all that sort of stuff.
Well, we've got the Honourable Charlie Smith here.
Absolutely.
Suck off.
I've only met him for the first time, so I'm just great to share company with him.
Fantastic. So, but to put that into perspective, if you have a look at the average Perth Now article, it doesn't get anywhere near that. Don't know if this is true, but I've been told that Jeff Perry's articles as well don't even get that many comments.
Who's that, mate?
He doesn't have that many watchers.
I don't watch
so
mainstream TV, so who is that?
Jeff Perry is apparently he doesn't
He's a
like me.
legend in his own lifetime.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But he is in the twilight of his career, so...
Okay.
I didn't say that, Jeff. That wasn't me. Jeff.
Well, I might have to look him
It
up.
wasn't me. And by the way, Jeff, come on the show, mate. Come on. No, we'll be nice. We won't make
Maybe
any
you'll go on
jokes.
his show one day. Do you think is that possible?
I have offered. So, Jeff, if
You were on his show.
Oh, yes. Well, he kind of gate crashed Andrea's show. So there's a bit of a difference. So
He interviewed you indirectly, didn't he?
he tried to take over Andrea's thing. So, but that's for another show. So we'll move on. There's more important things.
Let's get to the critical issue.
Yes, the very critical issues. We were talking preferences with Charles Smith.
Yes, we were.
And he'd said there was a lot of good preferences there. And there's a few...
So when a political party enters into negotiations, we enter discussions and see how we can mutually benefit from a deal, right?
Yes.
So we strike a deal.
Well, that's
Most
what
of those
politics is
deals-
about.
Hey?
Yes.
That's what politics is about.
Yes,
We're
so-
working together.
Most of those deals are struck via word of mouth. My word is my bond, right? That's how deals are done. We'll do this for you. We'll do that for you in return. That's how deals are done, right? So we were discussing One Nation doing a deal. So we did a deal with One Nation, which would be mutually beneficial.
I do need to jump in there. Who from One Nation were you dealing with? Are you allowed to say?
So we were dealing with Rod Caddies.
So that's the president of One Nation?
Correct.
WA, by the way.
So my group was dealing with Rod Caddies. Right?
Yep.
So they brokered a deal. The group brokered a deal, and everyone was happy. We would give them good preference flow in return for doing the same for us. Mutually beneficial. However, when the lists were published, we discovered that deal was reneged upon, and we kept up our side of the bargain. Unfortunately, Mr. Caddies did not.
Wow.
And
So
he actually placed me personally last in East Metro.
So just so we're 100% clear here, Rod Caddies, president of One Nation WA, candidate for the agriculture region.
Correct.
You're saying that you brokered a deal. We will give Rod Caddies a chance to come on the show, talk about this. In that deal, you guys were going to mutually preference each other, and that you guys have done that, the WA party, but One Nation has singled you out and put you last.
Well, so we were
last.
So we were part of the group, right? So we use a group to negotiate with, gives us more clout, right? So that was the way we did it, and it was agreed upon. We would send them all those preferences in return for One Nation's preferences, right? The minor parties have one thing in common. They want to disrupt major party politics, right?
Yep.
We have that in common, which should bind us all together.
Okay. So I actually became aware of this yesterday afternoon. So if in the stream you're looking at me saying that I'm a bit tired, there's a reason. I don't think I actually got to bed till about 4 o'clock this morning. And also the reason why I'm actually wearing shorts and thongs is because I was so tired I forgot to get my dress pants. No, that's a joke.
You look
by the way.
terrific from this angle.
Yeah. Hey, we're radio. We don't know. People don't normally see my legs. So apparently some of the comments on the live stream, no, I don't shave my legs. Real men have hairy legs. Sorry. So we sent an email out to One Nation head office, in particular request for an interview from Pauline Hanson. We had a response from her chief of staff, James Ashby, who said all preferences deals will be handled by the WA executive, and in particular, Colin Ticknell. So they told us to contact Colin Ticknell, leader of the party. So we did that. And so we gave him an opportunity to come onto the show, and the response was deafening silence.
As it would be. As it would be.
So I'm
He
going to...
spent 4 years in Parliament like that.
Just talking about, the
True story. What can I say?
So, no, I've seen a Facebook group with, I'll leave that one alone. So,
just talking about these sort of group deals that are done with smaller parties. Are there more than one groups doing these kind of deals? Are there other parties that are grouping together?
From my understanding, during this process, this election year, there was around 3 groups, all acting as in mutual benefit to each other. So there's 3 groups negotiating with each other, trying to get the best deal they could, which is fine. That's cool.
Yes.
That's the way deals are done.
Sure.
Right? But, unfortunately, this guy has no honour whatsoever for this process.
So could you say he's been behaving like a snake?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we call it a rat.
A rat, another one for it. So, what's the Lunar New Year this year? The ox. Sorry, no, I thought that was a joke there, but there's not. Last year there was.
The Chinese New Year.
Well, last year was the
relative
year of the rat.
I understand that somebody has approached Hanson to complain about what happened.
Yes.
So.
And that was her response, that you need to deal with the WA executive. So we did give the WA executive, including Colin Ticknell and Robin Scott, a chance to comment. We also sent it out to the party secretary, the party treasurer, and the second on all the tickets. Silence.
One Nation seems to be a party which I was a part of, right? So you would think there'll be some common ground. However, and that's one of the reasons I left, because they are not anything to do with a One Nation party, the current people in Western Australia. Tinknell himself come out saying they are a pro-immigration party. Caddis has come out saying they are a progressive party. Today in the news, we had Tinknell saying they are not a right-wing party.
What, really?
So, and that's a correct assumption. They've told the truth. The WA branch of this party is not what it perceives to be. They should be in the left-wing Labor Green camp, not a conservative right-wing party.
Wow, I didn't actually see that comment from
one of the
Ticknell.
reasons that I said goodbye.
Okay.
Because they are not what they seem.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot. So I'm really glad I gave you the 20 minutes to talk about that. So how do you think that's affected your chances at this next election?
I think it's a minor issue. The major problem for minor parties, if you like, is we've said already, the big Labor vote we think is coming. That's going to wipe everybody out.
Okay. So I think this also comes down to, because we were talking earlier about the importance of voting above the line versus voting down the line. So if you vote above the line, you're putting your trust, your future, your
there goes that word again,
next,
trust.
For the next 4 years in the party executives.
Yeah.
So for One Nation's example, that'd be
in the way they lay out their
sort of
preferences, like these two gentlemen on either side of me have pointed out, which is obviously very important. And it's not a role that most candidates play a part in. It's something that usually it's the executive team that participate in that. So just on this point, out of the smaller parties, Honourable Member of Parliament, Charles Smith, tell us, who out of the smaller parties do you feel has an alliance in terms of serving similar values for the community? From your perspective, obviously you've been doing a lot of...
Who holds similar values to me, you mean?
To WA party, yeah.
So the Western Australia Party, the basic philosophy is we're putting Western Australian citizens first beyond all others, right?
Great.
So we would think parties that prioritise local workers for local jobs are those who we have a shared interest. And I would have thought One Nation would be into that. I would have thought the Liberal Party would be into that, but no. They've all put me in particular way down the list.
Okay.
I just wanted to add to that. The Western Australian Party under Charles is absolutely committed to Western Australia getting 100% of its GST. And that is a thesis to which Colin Ticknell at one time attached himself. In fact, he signed a submission to the Productivity Commission saying much the same thing. And it's appalling to me that any political party would place an ally underneath the Labor Party and underneath the Greens, and indeed on the bottom of the ticket. To me, it is vindictiveness, but it makes it far, far worse when it is in direct contravention of an agreement. And I need to ask the Honourable Charles a question. Do I understand that the gentleman negotiating for One Nation wasn't just talking to you? He was talking to a group of people, so you're not the only witness?
Yeah, correct. I mean, I think the really sad thing is that we have all these things in common, right? And what's happened in this particular case is just pure spite, right? Parties have to get on, despite so-called personality differences, right? We have things in common and we need to join forces. It's as simple as that, really. And I think the One Nation Party here in Western Australia is a classic example of not only do they betray their voting base who vote for them because they're just not interested in working class issues for Western Australians, right? They betray the people who come to their party and they betray everybody who comes into contact with them. And it's not just me. We've got the DJ who right in front of us has the same experience. And many people have come to that party, good, intelligent people, to help it progress, and they've all been rejected. And that's what we're left with now.
Yep. So we've had a few messages come through here. One's, again, another statement, how low will they go? So I'm assuming that one's directed directly at the One Nation Party. Because I've had a lot of dealings with, through the radio station, even Malcolm Roberts, and I have to say the guys over East have been phenomenal. Like, they've supported this show, they've been really helpful, they've given us really positive feedback. Even we've had Malcolm Roberts twice walk out of Canberra, like Parliament House in Canberra, and call us up to do interviews, give us updates on things like the cash ban and stuff like that. So he's been absolutely phenomenal. To say that we've had the same positive experience with One Nation WA, I would be lying if I said we did. So now the other one here is preferencing the Greens is the ultimate betrayal. So for someone, please don't be offended by this, Charles. I consider you right wing. I think you're very supportive. You're quite conservative on your beliefs. To put people like, and it's not just the Greens as well. They've put Socialist Alliance, who just literally want to scrap all democracy, bring socialism like Venezuela to Australia. They're preferencing them above Charles Smith.
Correct.
And I consider myself a bit of a libertarian, so kind of conservative. I just don't understand whether you like a person or not. We vote people into politics to represent the people and to do the right thing by their core voter base and stuff like that. I think they've taken the sour grapes over the best.
I think they've demonstrated that actually they've proven to me that I'm a bigger and better man than they are.
Yep. So again, I know I get stalked a lot on my Facebook, so I know this is going to get back to them. So I invite Colin, Robin, all of them onto the show to respond to Charlie's accusations, because unfortunately
not just an accusation.
This is fact.
This is a fact, and it reminds me of an experience I had in 1974 when I was a candidate against Gough Whitlam, and one of the other candidates was a Nazi, a disgusting piece of slime named May. They used to call him the Skull, May, and Whitlam preferenced that piece of Nazi slime ahead of me. Wow. And I can feel, so I deeply empathise with Charles Smith being stuck at the bottom of a ticket beneath the Greens and the Socialist Socialists.
Well, when you think about it, they definitely have it. So it's not an accusation. They have definitely put you last. So, but saying that there's a deal being brokered...
Well, there's no doubt. Charles is not the only witness to that.
Yeah, so I'd love to give, in all fairness, I'd love to get them onto the show and get them to say their part.
Yeah, that would be good.
Because it's fair. So
basically, it wasn't political. It was personal, not political.
And political shouldn't be personal business, not in the best interest of you as a person. It should be in the best interest of the Australian people and the party. So, so what I would love to do now is, because we did actually do double ads, so we can go longer for 40 minutes, so this is cool. So, Michael, I'm getting a message saying we want to talk about the morality of preferences. Just so people understand, Michael has been involved in politics since...
Well, he's only 21 plus GST, but he does have a lot of history and experience.
Wow. 10 points on that one. So
Thank you.
The GC is a interesting one, but that's a federal act. So I talked about you get that to you guys off air.
I'm so pleased to hear you asked about morality of preferences.
Good.
Preferences should be determined on the basis of what is right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't exclude the possibility of negotiations, especially among small parties, all of whom have something to offer and may have policies which differ. But it's always in the interests of the nation generally, and particularly of Western Australia, that all the small and emerging parties exchange preferences among each other before they give preference to the majors.
Okay, so something's just come through from Dwayne here. So they've just pulled up the East Metro ticket on it. So they're saying that they haven't preferenced the Socialist Alliance above Charlie. I think you guys need to check because I'm pretty sure Charlie's number 53, which is dead last. So everyone else is above him.
What may be, Socialist Alliance isn't running in every region. It's possible they don't have a candidate in East Metro.
Can you pull it up and just confirm that he is dead last?
He's certainly dead last.
Okay, so they're not running in that seat, but the Greens are definitely above him.
Yes.
So he
He's
is
dead
dead
last.
last. So the
That's the
Green,
confirmation.
every party across the board. So no, I was slightly wrong there. The Socialist Alliance is not running in East Metro,
Yes.
but the Greens are.
But I just come back to the point that all the minor parties should exchange preferences with each other before going to the majors.
That makes sense.
And there are some political parties which have notoriously promised every election to do exactly that, and then at the last minute they bail out and give their preferences to somebody else. In the days when the Australia Party used to be in existence, they were always ratting. The Australian Democrats were always ratting. But it's unfortunate that there are still apparently some rats. Now, it is so important that the minor parties look after each other. Otherwise, we will end up with having the two-party dictatorship, I suppose you could say, as a kind
Monopoly.
of word. But I think the Honourable
Monopoly.
Charles wants to have
Duopoly,
another
I
word
think
here.
Well, no, I was listening with great interest, Michael, but it's worth noting for listeners who may be interested in the One Nation that what they're actually maybe achieving is what we want the least, which is taking out a reasonable person who was good opposition to Labor and the Liberal Party and replacing them with somebody from the major parties, taking away people's representation out of sheer bitterness. It's just ludicrous.
Okay, so let's you've had spoken about being put dead last in the East Metro area. What I'd like to do is just go around predictions on the East Metro area. Charles, who do you think will get the 6 seats in the upper house after this election now?
Well, we were working on 3 Labor, 1 Liberal, 1 Green, and my good self. However, the more votes Labor get, the less likely that is going to happen.
Yep. So with what they've done, let's run the scenario, let's say you don't get enough to get in on preferences, who do you think will pick up that 6th spot?
One of the majors or one of the smaller parties, do you think?
It's really down to the distribution flow. It's really a bit of a lottery.
Yep.
We have a few contenders. Myself, the Australian Christians, who I also understand ratted on me. It's worth saying, which was, I was not surprised by One Nation, but I was disappointed with the Australian Christians.
So we've got someone flicking through no mandatory vaccination party.
I'm
throughout the
sitting.
chat.
I'm sitting here right next to the Honourable Member of Parliament here, Charlie Smith, and I got to say, I am sensing his disappointment.
I'm sensing.
I could see it in his
rage.
eyes. I can see it. And I mean, look, speaking of the Christians Party, just to take the heat off One Nations for a second, because I haven't got anything. I'm neutral on this. I don't participate.
That's why we love having you in here.
Thank
because
you.
You are a neutral party.
I'm
so.
100% neutral, especially when it comes to the preferences, because I'm grateful that there is a gentleman like yourself and like your good self as well in terms of sage advice, and he handles these matters for my party, which keeps people like me as a candidate clear of it. So how Christian is it of the Christian Party to do that to you if they've reneged on a deal?
That's the question.
Just neutral.
I consider myself to be a Christian person. I have
Same here.
championed Christian values inside this parliament, right? And last time I checked, lying and cheating was not a part of the Christian doctrine.
I have to say, that's probably
But
one of the questions of the night.
Can I follow that up
Yeah,
just
go
with
for
a
it.
quick question to, I've done the right, I've got to do the left. A very important question would be, what sort of compromise would it take from a smaller party who should be working with other smaller parties to throw a smaller party under the bus and work with a major party? What level of compromise are we talking here?
Well, I don't think any level of compromise is acceptable. All the small parties, those that are non-socialist, should be working together to the extent that they all preference each other before the majors.
And it's also worth noting for listeners, Michael, that One Nation and the Australian Christians were working together as a unit, along with shooters, fishers and farmers. So that tells you really what these people are like. Why are they making friends with One Nation? A disgraceful party of liars. Why are they working with
Charles, I have to tell you an unfortunate fact. When I mentioned that there are political parties with a reputation for always bailing out of a deal at and doing differently from what they promised, unfortunately the Australian Christian Party, like their eastern counterparts, the Fred Nile group, are notorious for doing exactly that, and it's been going on for 20 years.
Yeah. It's very, very disappointing.
Okay.
And how much would a smaller party have to give to make a deal with a major party?
Well, the major parties will make a deal with anybody.
Right.
The major parties will encourage minor parties to rat on the other.
So sort of turn them against
and
each
they will
other.
promise something,
Yeah.
and they may not deliver it.
Right.
But unless the small parties learn to stick together, we face continuing bad government.
We all know it is a David and Goliath battle, but I guess if we don't work together, it becomes David is tied to a tree without any.
Yep. There's an
a
old
chance.
saying, many hands make light work,
Yep.
and many of the small parties need to group together and work as a team.
Well, we don't want them to group together to the extent that they lose their own individual identity.
No, definitely, because we need all the differing opinions. But
the balance.
sort of like form, how the Nationals and the Liberal Party have formed a coalition to work together. I personally feel that the smaller parties should do something similar to have all the minor parties work together. Obviously, have their own little areas of expertise. So the mandatory vaccination parties can concentrate on Section 158 of the Health Act. WA party can focus on making sure that
I
there's
worked
jobs
on this for a
West
number of
Australians.
years during the last Parliament, and it's
yeah.
very, very difficult to unite the so-called right-leaning parties.
Right.
Very,
So
very
it's-
difficult, which is why it's so fractured, and we have so many little parties.
It is hard, but the time to form a coalition is after the election.
Yep.
And if Western Australia, if enough Western Australians are listening to this program and get the message out, and if everybody gets out there and votes for a small party, we might have the wonderful blessing of a parliament in which half a dozen different small parties are represented in both houses,
Yeah.
and there is an opportunity for one person to gain the confidence of the lower house who is not a member of a major party. That may be hard to achieve, but I do earnestly believe that it is a vision which all Western Australians who believe in peace and freedom
And balance.
and balance should have in mind.
Yeah,
But when a crime against common sense, against political decency and against honour is committed by one of those small parties, it is particularly hurtful because we all expect the major parties to do those things all the time. And I would hope that the person responsible for this particular crime is feeling very, very ashamed.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
not.
So going back to my original question then, so we've
Yeah, go
had
on.
Charlie's prediction. Bass, what do you
Yes.
think will be the outcome because of this decision?
To East Metro in particular?
particular,
Look, East Metro is actually of personal interest to me because I live in that area,
Mhm.
and I've met a couple of members of parliament that are sitting currently in lower and upper house. They're both Labor.
Yep.
They're both relatives as well, and they're both nice enough ladies, actually, I must say. But neither of them is as near or dear to me as this gentleman here to my right,
Wow.
because the smaller parties do need to stick together.
Oh, group love.
We
group
are married,
love.
but not to each other.
See? We include all types in this show.
Well,
so
look, we're both extreme gentlemen, and we're happy to shake it.
Both well dressed.
What I actually would
dressed
like, thank
to
you,
the
sir.
nines, I have to say.
What I'd like to say is that the vision that I have for the future. I'm probably not going to make a prediction for East Metro because I'm too new to politics to even fathom that. What I would like to say is the politics of the future that I'd like to see is more respect, honour, transparency and truth between politicians, and even to the degree of handshaking and wishing each other the absolute
thumbs
best.
up for that, guys.
Yeah, and I think that in itself then allows the people to vote and make their choice, make their election count to who is the best option for them. I think that's honourable. I mean, me, for example, trying to put this gentleman down because he's a politician, we're running in opposition to each other, isn't fair, isn't right, isn't Australian.
To be honest, it's flat out discrimination. So,
we wouldn't accept that in sports, right?
Oh,
so
exactly.
I think if we look at leaders the same way we hold our sports people accountable, we wouldn't accept half-hearted leadership in sports, right?
Exactly.
We've seen people get fired from elite coaching places because they don't honour that leadership space. So what I'd like to see is better leadership with decency, with honesty, with fairness, with the true Aussie spirit. And I that's what I really hope to see, people winning on those merits rather than putting each other down to all false promises, because we all know historically politicians are profound for making false promises prior to elections.
Well, it's
and
funny
not
you should
following
say
through.
false promises and lies, because a false promise effectively is a flat out lie. That's a segment coming up shortly. Now, Michael, because we've got a couple of minutes before we have to go to the next lot of messages, what's your prediction for the East Metro area? Do you think Charles has a hope for getting in? Do you think
hope he
the
does.
Greens will pick up 2 seats? Do you think Liberals might be able to pick up the seat? What do you think will happen now?
I can tell you that what I hope will happen is that the people of East Metro will vote so solidly against the Greens that there is no longer a Greens representative from East Metro, which would make room for Charles and one other small or minor party candidate. And I would also hope that the people of East Metro would be wise enough to limit the number of Labor Party representatives to 2. However, one can never be certain about in politics. All sorts of things can happen. And I just want to make this mention of one important thing. The last week shutdown has been entirely political.
Oh, yeah.
It has been designed to improve the macho image of the Premier, who was not satisfied with just winning in the election. He wants to win the election with such crushing weight that he can control the upper house, which will have appalling results. And one major demonstration was planned for Parliament House for last Saturday. That demonstration was cancelled. There will be a major demonstration at Scarborough at noon on coming Saturday.
That's the 20th, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yep.
And that there will be, I think, just about every small party represented at that demonstration.
I know Tyler is actually one of the speakers for the president.
He will be an excellent speaker.
Yep. So I'm thinking.
I'm going there as media.
Yeah. So
It's just to film
because this is sort of like a test for things like that, and it's particularly with the press conference earlier. We now do have the ability to live stream from all across Perth.
Great.
So there has been plans being put in place, and we're still finalising them. So hopefully we'll be there, not just as a attendee, but also because I've been to other protests, and Perth Now, who I still can't believe the amount of comments we're getting. We're getting more than Perth Now on their comments. So we went to a protest, and they decided to take photos of the attendees while we were still setting up, about 2 hours before the actual event started, and they massively underreported the numbers of attendees. And that was one of their best comments, shares, posts on Facebook out of everything for that month. So, you know what? Why don't we get out there, and I'm looking at Dwayne for this one. Why don't we get out there with the camera, actually do some real reporting on it?
I'm happy to help on that part.
Yeah,
Definitely.
some truth in the reporting. And we'll actually find out what actually happened, so the people of Perth get to make a fair judgment of what's actually going on. So,
can I also add to Mike's brilliant comments from before? There was another event that was planned, and that event surprised me. A lot of people received, on the first day of the lockdowns, postal votes in the mail, which must have been well planned the week before for them to arrive on that first day. Did you get that?
Yeah, I got them.
So a lot of people did, and I wonder who must have been so organised.
I want to pick that one up after the break.
Sure.
But we've got a few other things we've got to do. We've got to jump to a quick message. There's something about those that are extremely dodgy in my books, but we'll go talk to these in a minute. So you are listening to Carter's Corner. We've got the Honourable Charles Smith, Bass from the Australian Health Party, and Michael Darby
Health
across
Australia
the
Party.
chair for us. So we will go to a message, and we'll be back after this.